What's up? Welcome on into Let's Bet It. Lauren Jabbar here with Mark Zeno. Zeno, how are we today? Happy Thursday. I almost said Friday. Had to think about that for a second. Thank you. How are you?
This is what happens. This is what happens when Lauren has to travel all over the United States. She loses all concept of space, time, and everything else. It is Thursday. It's great to be with you as always. We are, 72 hours away from the Super Bowl. And boy, do we got a lot of news to get to today.
We have so much news to get to today. First of all, we have Jonathan Von Tobel coming on in a little bit to talk NBA and NFL. We also have Arash Markazi coming on to talk about NFL and NBA. But before we get into anything, lot of trade action happening while we were peacefully sleeping last night. I go to bed last night, Zeno, and Kevin Durant is a Brooklyn Net, and I wake up and he's a Phoenix Sun, who ironically are playing right here in Atlanta tonight against the Atlanta Hawks. But a lot of crazy things happening. So KD now officially a Sun. Phoenix sent 4 first-round picks, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, Cam Johnson, and additional draft compensation to Brooklyn for Durant and TJ Warren. It just seems like the Suns right now, Matt Ishbia, like he's like, remember when Joe Burrow said, I'm that guy, or he's me, or I'm him, whatever he said? That's like kind of what Matt Ishbia is doing right now. He's like, I'm him, showing after 12 hours of officially closing, he's now the owner of the team. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest difference, right? Like, now that he's the owner, they're not drained by the luxury tax. So it's changed the game for Phoenix a little bit here, and they're willing to go over it, whereas they weren't before. And now when you get Devin Booker back healthy in the fold, I don't necessarily think that it is an overreaction to make the Phoenix Suns the favorite out in the West. I mean, when the numbers jump that big, it can be an overreaction in the marketplace. But you have to remember, this is now just about them, not necessarily with seeding and where they are. I mean, they're in the middle of the West, but the West is a wide open conference right now. And that's the thing, really. Sacramento probably is a paper tiger, in my opinion. The Grizzlies, they're tough, obviously. We see them get into a lot of fights, but, they haven't really had that huge playoff win in a series. Denver has always seemed to choke in the first or second round. I still think the Clippers may be the team to beat when it's all said and done if they get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard healthy all the way through. But, I mean, what can you say now? This is a wide open West, and it's up for anybody's taking at this point.
It's wild at this point. The Suns are immediately like in a title right now or bust mode. And with Durant, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, I feel like the only worry for this team at this point is keeping those 3 guys healthy. Devin Booker was out for a little while. He's going to be back in. But, I mean, I feel like that's an A trade for the Suns at this point because they know, hey, this is our time to make the push. The Nuggets are still going to be a really tough team to catch at this point. But we'll see. We also saw a trade with the Lakers, Jazz, and Timberwolves. Which I feel like it should boost LA's playoff hopes a little bit. The Lakers get D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt. Jazz get Russell Westbrook and a first-round draft pick. And the Timberwolves get Mike Conley Jr., Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Juan Toscano-Anderson, and Damian Jones, and multiple draft picks. Who do you think out of this 3-team trade that was kind of like a carousel has the biggest W out of yesterday before the trade deadline?
I mean, there's an argument to be made that it's the Jazz. They're immediately going to cut Russell Westbrook. I don't even know if it's actually happened already. I didn't check this morning, but by all accounts, he's going to be cut and he'll move on somewhere else. I've seen the rumors of Chicago, maybe even Miami, for Russell Westbrook to be signed. But again, they continue to stockpile draft picks now. the Jazz have sort of turned this thing over from Donovan Mitchell and everybody else now. I mean, a lot of these, you could argue all three of these teams are in rebuild mode. And now that the Jazz acquire one more first-round pick, it's like, okay, they are setting themselves up for a quicker rebuild than most other teams can. If the Lakers can't make some noise this year, I mean, they're going to be in perpetual, ninth or 10th place in the West for years to come. Like there's no way around it right now. So this is their sort of pushing their chips to the center of the table and going all in here. And, let's see what happens. But, I think the Jazz really have set themselves up for a situation where they can rebuild in the offseason fairly quickly.
Let's talk about the futures market for a second, because I feel like a lot of these trades have a big impact on the futures market. And what we're seeing, the Phoenix Suns, now the third favorite to win, the NBA Finals this year, right behind the Milwaukee Bucks at plus 420, Boston Celtics at plus 280. The Suns are at plus 460. Denver Nuggets right behind them. They're now fourth at 7-1 odds. Do you think these are fair odds that the books are placing, or is it a little bit of an overreaction on the Phoenix Suns?
No, again, I don't necessarily know that it's an overreaction. I think anytime Kevin Durant gets added into a lineup with an elite scorer like Devin Booker, that you're looking at that 1-2 punch that you sort of thought you were going to get in Brooklyn with those two guys, right? Like that's sort of the matchup here. You have the guard and the wing in now Booker and Durant. I think it just boils down to, can they all stay healthy? How long will it take them to gel together? And where do they end up finishing seeding wise? May end up mattering at some point in time, depending on, teams like Phoenix who are very good at home, but very bad on the road. Do you want to see them at least have one home playoff series? And what's the path that they have to go through? And who do they see? Like if Sacramento can hold on, or Sacramento can somehow steal the 2 seed, now Phoenix has the 4 seed, right? Or even the 6 seed, and they can get past the first round. The NBA doesn't reseed. So you'll end up seeing a team like Sacramento in the second round. That could put you in the Western Conference Finals. Like that's kind of the logic to go with here about how they're supposed to get through this whole thing. So some of it will depend on that. But, you have a very tight West Conference from 4 all the way through 10 right now, are separated by a game and a half. So, who knows how the rest of this is going to shake out. The regular season will matter to those teams in the West and where they finish.
Yeah, now the Brooklyn Nets, I feel like, went from being a playoff contending team to kind of in rebuild mode. I mean, what are your expectations for them? Right now, they're still at 100-1 to win the NBA Finals, but I don't think that, they're even going to come within sniffing distance of that at this point. What are your expectations for the Nets the rest of the season after having, a solid last couple of months?
Will Ben Simmons, even continue to play? I don't know at this point. I mean, what's left of the Brooklyn Nets? I'm old enough to remember, Lauren, and the time where the back pages of the New York papers were dominated that New York is now a Nets town. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That not last long.
Is it now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's over. And that's not saying much because the Knicks aren't very good either, but that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. Where do the Nets go from here? I don't know. Start rebuilding, restocking, look towards the draft, see what else is out there, see what guys, what you want your roster to look like. But this is a team that, and crazy enough to believe this, Lauren, they're still 7 games out of 11th place, right?
There's 6.5. Third of it's true.
There's a third of the season left. Even if they play close to 500 ball, there's probably a chance they're still in the playoffs. You have to think about it. I mean, if you're the Wizards of the Pacers right now, if you're the Wizards of the Pacers right now, for Brooklyn to fall below 7 teams is really hard. They may end up. I still would say I would look at their odds to make the playoffs still and see what they drop. If I'm still getting plus money on that, I would take the Nets to still make the playoffs, because I just think it's really hard. And let me count it up here. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You need 6 different teams to leapfrog you, to put you out of the playoffs. That's really tough to do with only 27 games left,
Yeah. Yeah, especially when they're 32-22 on the season. Yeah, they have lost their last 2 games, but they're sitting right now at 5th in the Eastern Conference. So it's really going to be tough for them to at least drop out of play-in contention at that point. The trade deadline ends at 3 p.m. today. I feel like there's a lot of details that might be coming out, may not be coming out. Do you think that we'll see any more big action like this, or do you think maybe it's kind of like simmering down a little? Because I feel like these are the big names that were kind of, in the trade deadline rumors towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any more big names moving. I think you're looking for round out pieces, filler pieces, holes, whatever you have in your
depth
roster.
pieces.
That's one, right? Maybe an extra shooter that can come off the bench, things of that nature. I mean, there's always teams looking to make some improvements. I mean, look, the usual names have been kind of floated around there the entire time, and you know who they are if you're paying attention. But if any of those teams are willing to make a move at this point in time. But we'll find out come 3 o'clock today, probably, even 4, depending on how quickly they can get all the news out there.
Yeah. If it's Woj or Shams, you'll definitely be hearing about it before 3 p.m. So it's going to be interesting to see how things play out over the next 5 or so hours. For more on that, let's bring in our good friend, Jonathan Von Tobel, JVT, host and senior NBA insider for VSiN and co-host of Cofield and Company for ESPN Radio Las Vegas and the Odds Maker Pod for Superbook Sports. JVT, long time no talk. How are you?
I'm good, guys. It's good to be back. Is there anything going on? I think it's kind of a boring week so far, right?
Yeah,
it has been.
I heard this name.
Lauren, you left out best hair in the business, AVT. You left out best
hair
in his resume.
Best hair in the biz. I love to see. You love to see it. Okay, yeah. Ben Simmons, never heard of him. I don't know. He's now like the star of the Brooklyn Nets. But what are your thoughts on? We went to bed last night and KD was a Net. We wake up and he's a Sun. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's a little surprising, right? Because all the indications were that Brooklyn were actually looking to add to their team to pair guys with Kevin Durant. There was a report out there that they had been looking to add Pascal Siakam, that they had advanced talks with the Toronto Raptors about a package that would bring Siakam over to play with Kevin Durant. So I think it was somewhat surprising because it opens the door now for a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of things here, right? The Suns become contenders in a Western Conference that is very weak at this point right now. The Nets all of a sudden loaded with 3-and-D wing players that could be a benefit to any other team in the NBA. All of a sudden now are probably getting a ton of phone calls because they're probably not done selling off a lot of these pieces that could get them some draft capital. That would include Patty Mills. That would include Seth Curry and others. So I'm somewhat surprised that it happened because in the initial thoughts were that the Nets were looking to add as opposed to sell. But given what they got back here, it's a pretty solid deal for Brooklyn. Kevin Durant, right? Arguably, when he was playing, one of the best players in basketball, he'd been playing at an MVP level before his injury. So I think that you're looking at Phoenix and going, we have Devin Booker, we have Kevin Durant, and we have still Chris Paul, a solid option in his own right. I think we're pretty good here. Now, I think what concerns you with Phoenix is the depth, right? Because their bench is super thin right now at this point. And there's not a lot of really impact pieces coming off of that bench for them as they get into a best of 7. So maybe they're not done trying to add at the margins, whatever that is going to be. But I think it's hard to put Kyrie Irving over Kevin Durant in terms of the trade because, I mean, look, Kyrie Irving is an impactful basketball player. We saw it last night. He's great. He sped up the Dallas Mavericks. They looked amazing offensively against the Los Angeles Clippers for a few quarters. There's a really high ceiling there. But you don't know with a guy whose mood changes with the wind how that's going to work out if you're the Dallas Mavericks. So just given that, I think that it's a little hard to rate Kyrie Irving ahead of that trade. So I would put the Phoenix Suns trade up there.
Yeah, Kyrie, man of the people, though. I saw a video of him walking home or walking somewhere after the game with all of the fans of Dallas. What do you think about him and Luka and how they're going to kind of, gel together down this stretch run here?
I think they're going to work. Like, I think one of the issues or like one of the things that people, when they say there's not like, enough basketballs to go around, right? That's the common phrase you see with trades like this. But there's plenty of examples of this actually working, right? James Harden and Chris Paul were just a very short distance away from beating the Golden State Warriors in their heyday in a Western Conference Finals. We saw that when they were together, that pairing of James Harden, Kevin Durant, or that trio, I should say, and the numbers they were putting up together in the few games that they played were historic. They were incredible offensive pieces. And even when they weren't together, James Harden and Kyrie Irving worked, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant worked. So I don't really believe in the thought that there's not enough basketballs to go around. I think offensively it's going to be great. If you look at Kyrie Irving's numbers this year, 37% of his made baskets were assisted on, which means he's playing off ball. Over 50% of his three-point attempts made were assisted on. So again, those are catch and shoot opportunities away from the ball. I think this will work out. The question just is for them, who's playing defense, right? Because the difference between the Mavericks last year that made it to the Western Conference Finals and the one that is on the floor this year That team last year was 7th in defensive efficiency. This year, they're 21st, right? So that's a really big difference in terms of what you're going to play on that end of the floor. I think they'll be dangerous in any series, and I think they work together overall. The big picture, you got to get somebody to make a stop or two, and I don't know if they have that on their roster right now.
JVT, did the Lakers do enough to get past the play-in line into the playoffs?
I think so. I think you really like what the Lakers did for the most part because they addressed needs. Like one of the things that all of us were looking around at were like, man, like you guys don't really have that much shooting, right? Like there's not a lot of athletic wing pieces to go around with LeBron James. I mean, we know what the thing has been for LeBron, right? Is surround him with shooters and let him go to work. And now you get a guy like Malik Beasley, who's been a fantastic shooter. I think people will look at his stats this year and say 36% is not that good. But you have to pair that up with the volume. He's a high volume 3-point shooter that is shooting 36%. Those two together make a really good and deadly knockdown shooter that you compare with the Los Angeles Lakers and what they desperately need. And Jared Vanderbilt's a really good small ball 5 that's pretty switchable, can work in multiple positions. I think you really do like what they did. And to your point about like getting out of the play-in, look, they've got quite the gap to climb out of. They are, I think, if my math is correct, 4.5 games out of the 6th seed in the Western Conference. I would say that's a pretty big hill to climb for LA. But I do think that if they make it into the play-in, which again, they're only 2.5 games out of that or 2 games out, they would be, outside of the Golden State Warriors, fully healthy. If the Warriors are still in that play-in mix, they would be the favorite to make it out of that quartet. So I think they should be a playoff team with these additions.
It's one of those things where it's not so much about the games, it's about leapfrogging 7 teams to get there. Like that's the hard part.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look too. So these gaps too, even small ones are bigger than we realize. Like for example, after the Suns acquired Kevin Durant, they're now minus 175 to win the Pacific. They're 2 games back. And while you might not think, well, 2 games, that's not that much, to say that they have nearly a 64% chance to overcome a 2-game deficit, that's the way you're looking at it. That's a little bit more of like, right, a little bit more of a task if you're talking about laying that kind of a price. So to your point, for the Lakers, it's climbing through all of these teams and making up that gap. They might be better, but I think just the math and the timetable that you have, it's going to be pretty hard.
Now you look at this, the West got a lot stronger in the last 24 hours or so. It's pretty crazy to think. Right now, the Nuggets sitting at the top. They're on a 1-game win streak right now. But you look at the Suns, they're 8.5 games back. You look at the Mavs, they're also 8.5 games back. Do either one of those teams catch the Nuggets, or do you still kind of like the Nuggets as the team right now to win the West?
So I think to win the West in terms of the regular season, the Nuggets have enough right now in terms of their gap and the way that the season is laid out that I don't think that they're going to be in danger of losing the 1 seed in the Western Conference. However, I was chatting with my buddy. His name's Chad Andrews, works in Denver radio out there. The one thing I think the Nuggets need to do is they need to look around and go, we need a wing defender like now, because Aaron Gordon is fine. But he does not have the athleticism and the quickness to keep up with some of these guys that he's now going to have to defend. I mean, if you just look at everything, the way the Western Conference is breaking down, I don't think the Nuggets can afford to stand pat. And that's why you look around at this market. Jay Crowder should be available. Dorian Finney-Smith, you should make calls on him. You should be making calls about any of these 3-and-D guys that are over there for the Brooklyn Nets. Even the Toronto Raptors. I know they went and got Jakob Poeltl. You should be calling about OG Anunoby and trying to get something there, because that's what I think the Nuggets desperately need now at this point. So, Lauren, like as far as losing out on the 1 seed in the West, I don't think there's any danger. But the path to a Western Conference championship is a lot more rocky now, given the build of the teams that they have to face.
All right, JVT, let's switch gears here from the NBA to the NFL and Super Bowl 57. I mean, I guess, I could have fun and ask what's more likely, that the Sixers, win the East or the Eagles win the Super Bowl, but we can move on from that. So in short, who do you like in the Super Bowl and why?
So I think I got plus 109 money line price on the Kansas City Chiefs, somewhere around there. Look, I thought the market got it right and initially hanging Kansas City as a 2.5-point favorite. I was really surprised about like the veracity with which the line moved in favor of Philadelphia. And I think that was the market kind of overreacting to some of the wide receiver injuries that the Chiefs were experiencing in that AFC Championship game. That does seem to be settling down now here for Kansas City, and it's starting to trickle now in the direction of the Chiefs. But I do think that the Chiefs should be the favored team here. I think that we've talked about this with the experience of the offense of this Patrick Mahomes. I think this offensive line for Kansas City is very underrated when you look at the pressure numbers in terms of what they've allowed compared to what Patrick Mahomes is responsible for. All these things, it's a really good pass protection unit. I think they should be able to match up well with Philly. I think overall, I like this Chiefs team. So I bet a money line, got a couple of props in there as well, but everything's geared toward the Chiefs having a successful day.
How much do the injuries concern you with the guy like Patrick Mahomes, who didn't do a Toradol shot after the last game? I know he had, 8 days to kind of recover, but now he has 2 weeks. Do you think the ankle is going to hinder his mobility at all? And same with Jalen Hurts and his shoulder.
I don't think so. I mean, so I've actually learned a lot of the things that I've bet too. I think the market was shorting Mahomes in like rushing yard props. Some spots opened as low as 10.5 on his rushing yards, and now it's upwards of 20.5 in some places. I got over 17.5 on his rushing yards. I think, to your point, this is a longer timetable of recovery for Mahomes. And yes, he was kind of limping around at the end of that Bengals game, but this is now, I would assume, 2 weeks geared toward rest, recovery, and rehab to get that thing as right as possible by the time you get to the Super Bowl. I think the market kind of shorted them there. So I do think that's not really holding him back. Hurts is another question, though, only because if you look at his game since he's come back from injury, he has not played well, right? If you look by PFF grading standpoints, we're talking about a sub 60 passing grade. He's not looked effective in terms of accuracy. And I think the difference for Hurts is it's such a limited sample size, because think about even the San Francisco game, he didn't really have to do that much. So it's not like he's working out these kinks, right? It's all running plays, and he hasn't had to do that much. So the sample size of plays that he has had between the injuries and time off, it is so much smaller than what Mahomes has been dealing with since this ankle injury. I think that that's a little bit of something to be worried about here with Jalen Hurts, because he hasn't really been playing well since the ankle injury, or excuse me, the shoulder injury.
Any feel on the total here? I mean, we've seen this thing open up around 50. It got bet down to 48.5. Now we're sitting at 51. That key number as far as totals is concerned. I those over. I think it would go over 27, 24 feels about right. So that key number 51 could be there, but what are your thoughts? Did we lose him? Did he freeze on us?
Oh, no. Jonathan Tobel.
I broke him with one simple question. I have the ability to do that.
Is he still there?
I hope so. Maybe he'll just pop back into our lives.
Oh, it's okay. What do you feel about the totals, How do you think the game's going to play out in terms of total with the Super Bowl?
I mean, again, the one bet I have already placed and that I am on is the first quarter over 9.5. Now that doesn't mean the game's necessarily going to go over, but when you look at the last 7 Super Bowls, 5 of them have gotten to 10 or more in the first quarter, including the last 3 in a row that have landed directly on 10. So I am going to account the fact that these two teams, who are both top 5 in first quarter points scored this year, will absolutely get me to 10. So over 9.5 is where I place my money. Do I think they'll get there for the game? I feel like whoever's winning this thing is scoring at least 24, right? So that means that somebody's likely going to get 27, 24 feels about right, which is why it's sitting right at 51 right now is such a big thing as opposed to 50.5. And I think that obviously is going to play a big part in it.
Hard-hitting question for you, and the question that we've all been doing a ton of research on, so excited about: heads or tails, and what's the Gatorade color?
These props.
My favorite prop bet.
Tails never fails, and you always go with lemon lime because it's the best tasting flavor. So there you go.
No.
And plus,
no, it's orange.
Look, I would do this. I would say, if you believe the Eagles are going to win, bet the lemon lime because it's green. If you believe the Chiefs are going to win, bet the red because the Chiefs. There you go.
You think? I know. Someone said something about grape or the purple Gatorade. I'm like, when is the last time that you've gone to a store and bought the purple Gatorade? Like, literally.
The Riptide Rush is kind of nice. I mean, it's not a terrible flavor.
Wait, you know the name of it?
Yeah, man. Come on. I mean, you can get the White Glacier, which is the cherry. The White Glacier is the cherry. That's the other one I go to. And the Cool Blue.
Seriously
I like the
hilarious.
Cool Blue. They all kind of taste the same.
Seriously hilarious.
You're too young for this.
Yeah.
You don't remember when Gatorade used to come in a glass bottle when you could be like Mike? It used to be in a glass bottle. And that's when they had the citrus,
seriously?
which was absolute best Gatorade flavor ever. They discontinued it. They've never brought it, but it's the one that Mike always used to drink in the commercials, be like Mike. It was citrus because that was the
bottle. Yeah, that's great. I remember when Coca-Cola was in the glass bottles. I know they still sell that sometimes, which is really good. It's better than the canned Coca-Cola. That's neither here nor there. Poor Jonathan, his laptop crashed. He rebooted, but I know we have Arash Markazi coming on in a second. Jonathan Von Tobel, host and senior NBA insider for VSiN, co-host of Cofield and Company for ESPN Radio Las Vegas, and the Oddsmaker Pod for Superbook Sports. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at MeJVT. He's obviously the absolute best. We love having him on the show. Such a sharp when it comes to NBA and NFL action. Before we talk a little bit deeper about the Super Bowl with Arash Markazi, you're on the Eagles, right? You like Jalen Hurts and the Eagles here, or are you kind of siding with the Chiefs in this spot?
Yeah, I mean, I look, so I immediately, when it got to 2.5, I teased Kansas City and the over. Yeah, I know we don't tease totals. World freak out, please. It's the only football game left, so I was teasing it. The total
Why
and the
not?
side. So because it got to 2.5. So I have Kansas City plus 8.5 and over 44.5. That's what I have right now. I still think the Eagles are going to win the game. I'm sort of kind of hoping for it, just not by more than a touchdown, so to speak. But it's the pass rush for me. That's what it boils down to. I mean, if Kansas City figures out a way to negate the Eagles' pass rush, I think Philadelphia is dead in the water. I think it's the only thing that they can do to change the course of this game. And if you go back to the Super Bowl that they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it all started up front. Tampa Bay was able to get a ton of pressure up front early and often, and it just changed the entire scope of the game and got the Eagles out of their game plan. So I'm relying on the Eagles pass rush to go out and win a Super Bowl for them.
Yeah, I totally believe that too. And also, Patrick Mahomes had 2 weeks to kind of recover that ankle, but at the same time, it's like two of the strongest forces in the league in the Chiefs O-line and the Eagles D-line and defense in general. Their pass rush is absolutely incredible. They have 70 sacks on the season. The next closest team is the Kansas City Chiefs, who had 55 sacks. It's not even close. Like, they put the quarterback under pressure. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is going to have to be extremely mobile. And I feel like he's only going to be at like 80, 85% at that point, which a lot of teams would take an 80, 85% Patrick Mahomes over the quarterbacks that they have under center. But when we're talking about the Super Bowl, we're talking about an extremely strong defense like the Eagles have. The other thing that worries me too is the Chiefs' red zone defense. They're allowing a touchdown on 67% of opponents' red zone possessions. So if the Eagles are scoring touchdowns on every single time they get to the red zone, where the Chiefs are maybe only scoring some touchdowns, a couple field goals, the Eagles are going to win the game. And the Eagles have one of the best red zone defenses in the entire NFL, which is pretty crazy. So that's going to be exciting. I know Arash Markazi is supposed to be coming on here in a second, Zeno, but I don't know. Do you think Patrick Mahomes is going to be 100% in this game? Do you think 2 weeks is enough for high ankle sprain?
I know he's not going to be 100%. I mean, we have like medical verifiable data that 3 weeks to get over a high ankle sprain is just not enough time. Like, it doesn't mean you can't play. It doesn't mean that he'll be completely ineffective, but to say he's 100% healthy, I think is just a flat out lie. He's not 100% healthy, so how much will he be limited? That remains to be seen. But again, it's one of those things where it could be as simple as, somebody diving at his ankle and hitting it and aggravating it, or he has to run and take off and he plants the wrong way and he re-aggravates it and the entire game changes. I mean, there's just inherently more risk involved with playing on a high ankle sprain when you're not close to 100%. So they'll do everything they need to do to get him in the game and get him to play. But I think we're all deluding ourselves if we think he's 100% healthy.
I know. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We'll have Arash on in a second, but let's talk really quick about a little bit of college basketball, because right now we have Purdue taking on Iowa tonight. Obviously, Purdue, one of, if not the best team in college basketball this year. They're 22-2 on the year, 11-2 in conference play. And tonight they're taking on Iowa, who is a really good team as well. They're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to the Big Ten. Purdue laying 8 points here. Is that too many points to lay? Would you feel comfortable with that?
Feels like it. I mean, it almost kind of feels like the fact that Purdue is still number one after losing to Indiana over the weekend to a Big Ten team that 2 weeks ago only had one top 25 win is laughable, I guess, to a certain extent, right? I mean, you probably should have been out of the number one spot overall. Fran McCaffrey, the head coach of the Iowa Hawkeyes, he lives in these moments. These are the big moments that he plays for. And he's the kind of coach that could slow down Zach Edey. Edey averages 22 points and 13 rebounds a game. If he can neutralize him and slow him down a little bit, I think Iowa has a great chance to not only cover this number, but they may even be able to steal an outright win on the road. But as slim as that may be, for them to cover this big of a number, I think Iowa's the play tonight.
Yeah, when it comes to the Big 12, I know not talking about any games specifically, who do you think at this point is the best team in the Big 12? Because that conference right now is an absolute freaking monster.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Kansas is the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody can compete with them from a shooting standpoint overall. But, I mean, there are some really good defenses in the Big 12. Iowa State, Kansas, Baylor is athletic as hell. I mean, these are all teams that are really, really good when it comes to it. You're going to get 7 or 8 teams in the NCAA tournament. I think the line right now, the line of demarcation is at West Virginia. They're in 7th place.
Mm-hmm.
They're 4 and 7 conference. They probably need to get to 500 in conference play, if not right below that line in order to do it. They're going to win 20 games. 8 teams in that conference are all win 20 games. So, you're going to have a lot of deciding to do when it comes to the Big 12 and where these teams are seated and how many actually get in.
Yeah, we'll see what happens come tournament time. No Arash today. He's stuck in traffic. Poor guy. People having issues today, It's a Thursday. It's almost Friday.
Thursday.
Almost the weekend. Super Bowl right around the corner. It's crazy stuff. I know. Crazy stuff. All right. Let's get into our best quick.
I was going to say, let's talk some other Super Bowl stuff real quick, because I'm going to give you one other prop that I'm on that you may be into that is not it's not a game script prop, but opening kickoff. Touchback, yes or no? We're going no here at plus money. We've already locked this in. Now, get this, Lauren. Here we go. 28 of the last 31 Super Bowls, the opening kickoff has been returned out of the end zone. The only 3 times it didn't, including last year with Evan McPherson, is when the game was in a dome. Now, State Farm Stadium is one of these retractable roofs, technically not considered a dome. But you have to remember that the pregame introductions are so long. There's so much adrenaline pumping for all these guys. In the opening kickoff, the guy back there is just waiting to expend some energy. If it doesn't get out of the back of the end zone, guess what? He's coming out with it. And, oh, by the way, Harrison Butker, who's the kicker for the Chiefs, remember, he's been fighting an injury the second half of this season, so he doesn't have the normal leg strength that he normally would. I think this is we get the trend to continue that this is not a touchback on the opening kickoff here. Got plus money on it. I'm going to roll with it.
I might tail you on that one. And I also like tails for the coin flip because, tails is due. It's always been tails. Why not? I'll tail you on the no touchback, and I'll tail you on the tails. We'll make it happen.
All right.
Let's bet it. Presented by our friends at Superbook Sports. Can you beat Vegas this football season? Superbook gives you the chance every week to go head-to-head with the best odds makers in Las Vegas. No fancy computer algorithms. No one across the pond setting lines for American sports. Just the best team of traders in the business at the Superbook in Las Vegas. Plus, some of the best odds boosts and promo bets in the country. So if you're in Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Nevada, New Jersey, or Tennessee, download the Superbook Sports app or visit superbook.com to start your battle against Vegas. From superbook.com to Pickswise.com, Mark Zinno, who we got on the site for the 3-star plays of the day.
Well, Lauren, you pose a very, very interesting question. By the way, all of our Super Bowl picks are already up there. There's a ton of best bets picks out there for you guys to go check out. We have nothing in the NBA tonight yet, just some soccer plays that are coming up this weekend. So nothing today on the site, but all the Super Bowl plays are up there as well. I'm going to throw up that opening kickoff prop as well, and a couple other props that I'm on for Super Bowl 57 up on the website later today. So check out Pickswise.com for all the information on Super Bowl 57.
Pickswise.com. All right, our play of the days. Plays of the day. Why not? We'll make that happen. What do you got today for Thursday?
All right, Lauren. We are going to go out west here to the Milwaukee Bucks and Los Angeles Lakers. Now, this line is moving and moving fast, but I locked in the Milwaukee Bucks at -5.5 earlier this morning. The Bucks have now won 8 in a row. In 6 of those 8 games, they've scored at least 120 points. So their offense is absolutely on fire. The numbers here all favor Milwaukee. They give up just 111 points per game on the road this season. They're the best rebounding team on the road in the NBA. The Lakers, well, their defense, third worst in the league. Milwaukee 16-4 straight up, 12-7-1 against the West this season. But most of this for me, Lauren, is about a straight fade of LeBron James and the Lakers. James listed as questionable with an ankle injury. Now with all the pressure of the scoring record off of him, I expect a letdown spot here for him and his teammates. In fact, it wouldn't even surprise me if LeBron is inactive for the game, giving him a night off after everything that he's just been through over the last couple of games. I think the Bucks take it full advantage here. Jump on this number quick. It's already at 6.5. I think the 5.5s are gone, but I locked in at 5.5. Give me Milwaukee minus 5.5 tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers.
I like it. I really do. Yeah, that was an incredible moment that we witnessed on Tuesday with LeBron against OKC. Little 15-foot step back jumper. You love to see it. We witnessed history. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was there. What a cool freaking moment. So congrats to LeBron, but like your side for today. I'm looking at the Seattle Kraken taking on the New Jersey Devils in Jersey on the Jersey Shore. I like the under for this game. The total right now is set at 6.5. I know the Kraken have been one of the best offensive teams all season long. They're averaging 3.54 goals per game, and the Devils are averaging 3.52 goals per game. You're like, whoa, why aren't you taking the over then? Well, let me tell you why. Jack Hughes had a 2-goal game on Monday and a win over the Canucks, but he also came out. He has an injury right now. So Jack Hughes, who is the Devils' leading scorer, might not be playing tonight. Andre Burakovsky, who is also a really high scorer for the Seattle Kraken, probably out tonight. And yes, the Kraken are one of the best teams offensively this season, but as of late, they have not been very good. Like, they're taking a ton of shots, but they're not scoring a lot of goals on them right now. And then you look at Vitek Vanacek, who's been incredible this year for the New Jersey Devils, 22-5-2 on the season, 2.34 goals against average, 916 save percentage. He hasn't lost a game between the pipes since December 27th, which is pretty crazy. And the Devils are the 7th best defensive team. They're only allowing 2.7 goals per game to opponents. I know the Kraken do have a plus 28 scoring differential on their season. They find a lot of their success from their offense. But again, their offense has been slowing down over the last few, and they're struggling on the power play right now, 3 for 26 over their last 10 games. Their penalty kill has been solid. They haven't let up a shorthanded goal in 8 games. So I feel like the defensive side and the guys between the pipes on both sides are the ones that are going to keep this thing together. I'm not sure if it's Philip Grubauer or Martin Jones tonight. Either way, I feel comfortable with both of them in between the pipes. Both have like an 894, 897 save percentage. So I like the under. Under for Kraken Devils, under 6.5. Lock it in. That's it. Love it. Also, I cannot forget to mention that we have an exciting announcement for Super Bowl week because Pickswise is giving away $1,000 to one lucky member of Pickswise Nation with our big game parlay builder contest. All you have to do is make 6 picks, Zeno, about what will happen in the Super Bowl, including the spread and total, plus player props, including Patrick Mahomes passing yards. If you pick all 6 correctly, you'll be entered to win $1,000 in cash prize. Use the link in the Pickswise bio to sign up right now for free. You think you could do it, Zeno? 6-leg parlay?
Sure. I have enough confidence in myself to get 4 of those 6 right. Yeah, absolutely.
I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. That's it for us today, guys. Find us on the Pickswise YouTube channel. Go to Pickswise.com. Follow us on Twitter. I'm Lauren Jabara. That's Mark Zeno. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, peace.